Welcome to the Journos on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Hugh McDonald and Alison McConnell here with me as we discuss topics surrounding football near and far. Lots to discuss on the programme. Managers getting sacked. First game of the new season, Ian Murray gone. We'll discuss that. We'll also be looking at some of the others who had a short reign throughout the UK. We'll look at Rangers and discuss, is there going to be pain for Rangers before eventually gain under Philippe Clement off the back of that impressive 1-1 draw against Dynamo Kyiv as well. And we'll discuss Jim Craig unfurling that flag for Celtic on the opening day of the season. The Lisbon Lions, will we ever see their like again? Great decision by Celtic to allow them to unfurl the championship flag. And we were discussing it a couple of days ago, and then it came into my mind this morning again about experienced players that come in to help a club, and suddenly in the twilight of their career, a new set of fans get to experience the quality that they possess. So there's lots of names that have been supplied to me on Twitter of various players that have joined a club in the twilight of their career. We'll discuss them too. Wee bit of fun because I know Ali likes her top 10. Ian Murray sacked one game into the new season now, obviously after 2 years in charge at Raith Rovers. It's been impressive, just missed out on getting them into the Premier League. And I think a lot of people will be amazed that the board came to that decision one game in.
I was surprised when I saw it. But I always think that from the outside looking in, you can have maybe a skewed perspective, you know, and you see, so what is actually happening to the club that you or me, in this case, as an outside observer, is not seeing and not getting. I think this is a very ambitious club now, Peter, with money behind it, with guys who are, you know, used to commercial success and wanting this. They're not playing about with this. They want to be in Raith to win the Premiership. And I think there's a ruthlessness and a focus on that. I thought it was really interesting that Andrew Barrowman, the chief exec, came out and did a 1-to-1 with the fans.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. Because
was that damage limitation? I mean, he did say this isn't a knee-jerk reaction. It's not an opinion based on one performance, 5 performances or 8, including, of course, the pre-season games. This is an opinion formed over a number of months, which I don't buy into.
Well, I think it probably is, but
why let them start the season?
That's what I was going to say. That's the point that you made the other day. Makes it seem, and his response to that was, we thought we'd give him another chance to see, and I went, well, that's not great business practice. If you were cheesed off with what had happened since Christmas, and said, no, we'll really need somebody fresh to take this forward, obviously the time to do it would be the summer. If you look at the results since Christmas, they have been up and down. There have been some really poor results, been some really good ones as well. And I'm just wondering, inside the ground, he said something kind of oblique as well, Peter, about, we're just hearing stuff. And hearing from who? Was the players saying to you that they weren't at? You know, it was a kind of statement that, and I'm not blaming fan media, that's not their jobs, but if it had been a press conference, I would say, excuse me, you said you were hearing things. What was the things that you were hearing? What were the society? On reflection, you can see why they did it. On reflection, I agree with your point you made, I think it was Monday, that, you know, that one game after the season, after he's done a transfer window and got big players in.
I think it's normally what he says. You know, you look over the last couple of months and you think, no, this isn't the guy. It's taking us where we want to go, and it's not based on the last couple of weeks. It's not based on one performance. It's not based on pre-season and League Cup games. I think the obvious question is, well, why now? I think that the timing, still seems odd. I think even after the explanation, I think the timing of it still seems a bit baffling. It makes it difficult for whoever's coming in, because you're playing catch up right away. You're coming in when you've got to assess a squad and look at what you've got when you don't really have time. You're having to do it well, also managing.
Budget and Stevenson might not have been another manager's
Yeah.
idea of
Yeah.
a big part of their budget.
Yeah, bringing in players that are at the end of their career. Somebody else might have went for the opposite.
The perfect timing would have been, well, you didn't get us into the Premier League. We're going to try a different angle here. We're going to try a new face. Now, that would have suggested to me that you have a board that has a sensible outlook to say, listen, it's our right and our decision to say we want to go in a different direction because you've just, you've got to the edge, but you just couldn't quite get us over the line, so we're well within our rights. We want to thank you for trying. We think we're going to get somebody else who will get us there. By the way, we think we're going to get somebody else who will get us there when Dundee United are in that league. Dundee United are not in that league now. So you say
that's a big crucial.
Absolutely.
That is the core of this. There's so many teams in that league now where reasonable prospects have gone up. It's not like the old days when you say, "Oh, Dundee United's in the league, Dundee's in the league, Hearts in the league, Hibs in the league, Rangers are in the league." Now you've got to say, "Well,
yeah, it's quite a level playing field when you look. You've probably got a plausible 4 or 5, as you could say, would have genuine ambitions and the infrastructure to go up."
Yeah, and over and above that, I look at the situation and you try and assess the facts. That point that you made about him saying, we've been hearing things is a very valid point to get our teeth into. But I've spoken to a number of players over the course of last season, especially, when we got to the end of the season, you meet up with so many of the championship players and say, who was the best footballing team? Raith Rovers. Right. It was Raith Rovers. Every guy you spoke to was saying Raith Rovers are a good footballing team. So I don't know what he wants. I don't know what that board wants, but they've certainly made a rod for their own back with it. The other thing that worries me about it, and this is just the norm these days, is if you've got a board that's got a leader and you've got a sensible strategy, you don't listen to the noise. You're able to say, I understand your fan concern, but this is the way we think we'll take it forward. You know what I mean? I'm not saying disregard fans, but sometimes there are fans who get the ear of, chairman, chief executives, board members, and you think it just derails, the need for, a solid plan, the need for a leader to take the club forward and say, I'm going to show faith in you.
I agree with that. I think the other thing as well that may be crucial in this is that I was talking to a guy who was at Airdrie for Raith Rovers the other day, and they said Raith Rovers were awful, really, really poor.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, see, sometimes the speed of it, like it happened on the Sunday morning after, I just, that final straw thing, they've just looked at this and said, Airdrie have got this matter, Rhys McCabe is getting praised, this style of football is getting praised, and I just wondered if that's just tipped everything. It's just said, no, we've been thinking about this right up to when we made the wrong decision and we're going to write in their minds, we're going to write that decision immediately. We're not going to wait 4 or 5 games till we're out of this league or got difficulties in the league. We're going to buy and buy. I think again, these are people, that they're not kidding with this thing. They really believe they can be in the Premiership, and they believe this is the season to do it.
Yeah, and strangely enough, we were laughing about last season when we were sitting on the couch and everybody's discussing, managers under pressure after 4, 5 and 6 games. Because, that was prompted by the Jack Ross at Dundee United debacle of a couple of seasons. He gets 7 games.
When did Sean Maloney get it?
11 or something. Was it as much as 19?
Yeah, but the funny thing about Sean's was funny, and it brings me nicely to David Gray, but Sean's was funny because Sean said to me, I actually thought, Peter, they were going to sack me after 4. He said what had been sold and what I eventually came into, the goalposts were moved swiftly. He said, and then after game 4, he said, I actually thought they were going to sack me. And that tells you everything that you need to know about certain boards, which is why, Alison, I think the David Gray development will be very, very interesting because obviously, you've got Junior Hoylett signing. you'll be looking and saying to yourself, I've just signed Nicky Cadden. So you'll be looking and saying, okay, how well are they going to back him? I would disregard the result against St Mirren and say this is that transitional period where they're going to have to back a young manager.
It's interesting though, isn't it, that in the back of that result, all of a sudden you see a few players coming in that you go out and you think, right, what do we need to do? But yeah, I think I would fear for David Gray. I think it's not...
Off the back of the Black Knights comment as well.
All of it. I think when you put it all together, it's not a board who are known for their patience across recent seasons. Funnily enough, Ian Murray, you'd think would be one of the potential candidates should he find himself, if David Gray should find himself under real pressure. But I think Hibs is a tough job just now. I think if you look back to across recent seasons, in fact, I'll go all the way back actually to Neil Lennon, you'd say it would be the last time they've had a really strong season.
With a really strong manager who had power as well, who had a sense of who could swagger his shoulders and push against the door a wee bit more than others. I don't
think this board wanted that.
Of course they didn't. Absolutely not.
No board.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, I think it's even more difficult in our country because you have certain fan-based boards, but you have boards where they want that power, they want the yes man. But bear in mind here, there's a double-edged sword to this because Malky Mackay's in there, not flavour of the month based on that comment from the Black Knights as well. So he's now got to go and recruit players that can help David Gray's cause. I'm not saying that right now David Gray is under any pressure. What I'm saying is they've got a track record for certainly putting you under pressure. So I'm worried about it. I agree with you.
I think an inauspicious start to a season puts any manager under pressure. I think it brings immediate pressure. And
I think as well, especially when you're a head coach rather than a manager.
Yeah.
Head coaches are pretty easy to replace.
I think the other thing we've got to put into perspective, especially for the likes of David Gray and any other manager, maybe not... he's had 2 years, Ian Murray, before he got the sack. But I was looking at the top 10 managers who didn't last all that long. Leroy Rossignol takes the biscuit. He got 10 minutes, which was, it was a lot of time. I wonder how many board meetings were held within that 10 minutes.
His first 5 minutes were promising as well.
Exactly. I'd love to have got to a point. I'd love to have been a fly in the wall when they eventually appointed him and then went, no, he's gone.
Tea's not even cold.
It's just mental, isn't it? Here's the top. Here's 10. I'm sure we can think of a lot of others. Dave Bassett, he got 4 days. Bob Bradley at Swansea City, 85. Frank de Boer, 77 days. Remember him? Les Reed gave 41 days. Some other notables that stick in my mind is Brian Clough, 44 days at Leeds United.
I was just self-destruct.
Yeah, take all your medals.
I was just like,
if you cheated.
That was one of the. I'm old enough to remember that, vividly. Like that isn't a piece of history to me. It's almost contemporary because I remember the whole. And even at the time, I remember things. This is the maddest appointment ever. You're appointing somebody who hates Leeds United and hates all the players at Leeds United to manage a team.
Yeah. Strangely enough, though, had they persevered with him, Leeds United could have been European Cup winners. Admittedly, they were in the European Cup in 1975. But, he was one of those... He was a manager who could transform clubs. He was absolutely sensitive.
But you're taking on players, though, that these players, you hear all the stories about Clough in the dressing room, belittling players, even physically, in the case of Roy Keane, giving him a punch in the stomach.
Yeah.
Martin O'Neill tells great stories about him, just saying to you, don't talk to me like that, and just give the boy the fat genius, give the boy... And the Leeds United players they'd been brought up in a different way. They wouldn't have... It was just destined to fail. See the other one in your list, it just came back to me, going, Troy Deeney. Remember Troy Deeney?
Oh, yeah.
Lasted about 3 minutes as well. Remember he kept slaughtering his players all the time. It's every press conference.
I know. Apart from the lunacy, I always wonder about managers who come in who were who were great players, and then they realise, oh, I'm in here, this is a nightmare, and
then Derek Adam, how long did he last at
Raith Rovers, we should have mentioned Derek.
No, Ross County.
Ross County, sorry, yeah.
I mean, his first press conference, man, Derek.
Yeah, I met him actually not long after he left Ross County, after the standard of football is rubbish, and I think he said Morecambe are far better than what he's inherited. But I met him in a I think it was one of these pubs that does breakfast. I'm not going to tell you why I was in a pub, but nevertheless, he just walked up and I said, Derek, how you doing? He just looked at me. He said, I could write a book on it, and I said, you really should. He says, don't ask me for an interview, and I went, okay. He didn't want to divulge the madness of it, but certainly his comments didn't help, because that really intensified it was almost like a clamour for him to get billeted by that time, because as soon as you start giving it the Gerald Ratner, this is crap, you're gone,
and then you got to go into the dressing room next day and say, after a defeat, and say, right, I'm going to pick you up for next week, we're telling you you're worse than Morecambe.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You give us your thoughts on it. I mean, that's the joy of the Journos. We like to discuss these things, managers getting the sack. Raith Rovers fans are probably best placed. I always think, at times your eyes don't deceive you, or you paying your money last season. And as Hugh mentioned there, maybe the board looked at it from January onwards. What did you think of January onwards in Scottish Park and Raith Rovers, and how they were playing? And did you have any faith in the manager long term then? Maybe you'd lost faith. It's one of those great topics. Anyway, from managers getting the sack, and I think, before I just leave that topic, we mentioned David Gray. Suddenly the next couple of months is where managers really do, strangely enough, in this new environment, this is where they really do come under pressure, Alison, because, you mentioned David Gray, but there are a number of managers in that bottom six who will suddenly, before we get out of October, one or two might not make it.
Yeah, I think there's always an early casualty. I think you always see a team not getting off to a good start, and people get concerned, boards get concerned, because it's about money. You don't want to be left and cast adrift anywhere near the bottom of the table. You've got to stay in keeping with those round about you. I think if there is any danger that you look as though there's going to be a slide, then I think you can expect fairly swift action, because clubs just can't afford the dangers, can't afford to flirt with going down into the Championship.
Here's another thing about it now, which brings us nicely to, I think we're living in an environment where there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction to things, and there's a lot of statements made game after game, decision after decision, where suddenly everybody's an authority on, what's happening after watching a team play one game at the start of the season. Rangers drop points at Tynecastle off the back of the manager giving an extension to his contract, off the back of the Rangers chairman, John Bennett, saying there needs to be a more, there needs to be a long-term strategy instead of this short-term fix. And suddenly, you get 2 games into it. Rangers have a 0-0 against Hearts, but a really impressive 1-1 against Dynamo Kyiv. We've had people saying can't see the style, don't know what the style of Rangers is at the moment, questioning the signings, looking at the fact there was only one that started against Hearts, but suddenly you get to the Dynamo Kyiv game, the manager makes crucial changes, which is what is the making of a manager, is when he can make changes that has ultimately an outcome on the match. And he made changes, and they got their just rewards from the man of all mans that everybody has an opinion on every minute of the day, Cyril Dessers.
Yeah, I think they were well worth the draw last night. I think they might arguably have taken more from it, but I think they deserve to take it back on level terms. I think it was a different kind of performance, a different game, obviously, from the game at Tynecastle. I think it's way too early to be judging them now on the basis of 2 games. But what you would point to is across recent seasons that Rangers have been incredibly encouraging in European football and in a European environment. Be interesting to see what the difference Hampden has when they're away from Ibrox. I think Ibrox was such a fantastic fortress for them in European competition. It'll be interesting to see just what impact Hampden has, a different kind of stadium, and the logistics of that for their own support, but I think certainly you would be encouraged on the basis of that performance last night that they would go through, and we spoke about this last week, that this is a huge tie. Like the getting into Champions League football is a game changer for the Rangers this season. I think the pressure around that game and the manner of the performance, I think, would excite the Rangers support. I think it would be far more optimistic than what they would have saw at Tynecastle on Saturday afternoon.
I thought there were passages of play that were really, really good and something to build on. I'm still of the opinion, and I remain so with any manager who comes into a job, either after 10, 13 or 14 games or mid-season or whenever, it's not your team. And I think, to be fair to him, although he was allowed a little bit of leeway in the January transfer window to try and tweak the Michael Beale debacle, I still feel as if this season, and the reason why I said, could Rangers be in for more pain before there's gain, is he deserves to be able to build his own team. He deserves that backing. Obviously, he might get even more backing if suddenly they secure Champions League football, because that can bring riches that maybe the Rangers board can bank on and be clever with in the transfer market, Hugh. But he deserves a full season of, right, this is my team, judge me on that.
Yeah, and that's what John Bennett is and his board are saying, we're backing this guy, this was a statement of intent. And I love all these strategies, and all these strategies are great until they meet reality. It's like, every strategy in football is great. If you sit down and say, well, what we want to do is produce players and then we sell them on. And then you produce players and you say, well, you selling, unfurls? You go, well, that is it. We all bought into that.
Yeah.
But the real strategy at Rangers is quite simple. You have to win games. I mean, history, this is not some highfalutin theory I've come up with. And people say that the strategy is like, take the pain this season. And if you say, well, what's the definition of the pain? If the definition of pain is like winning no trophies, I mean, that gives the pressure then gets really ramped up you, and then you need a board to say, listen, this is what we're going to do, and I don't know if they can withstand that.
And also then the pressure is cumulative, because if you go for a season and you don't win anything, the next season the focal point is even more intense, because if there's a backward step or it's not an immediate strong start, the pressure of the previous season is there. It
the League Cup bottom that. The League Cup bottom
a bit of leeway, but the league is shifting.
The reality is if you lose to Celtic on the first game of the season, which would be at Hampden, and then you maybe drop points subsequently that month, all of a sudden there will be noise. There will be a lot of noise.
The first one's at Celtic Park.
First.
That puts even more pressure on him, doesn't it?
Sorry, you're right.
He has literally, like the start of the season has been, a really test for him. You got to go to Hearts away. I think Rangers and Celtic would both agree that the toughest game outside the world would be Kilmarnock away or Hearts away. I think it would be one of the two.
Yeah.
So he gets that. Then he's got to go through 4 tries. Interestingly, last night I think he will not only smile and rightly so at that last minute goal, he'd be quite pleased with what happened in Salzburg, because 20 scored late to make it 2-1, because he wouldn't want to play Salzburg.
Yeah.
He'll take it. He would rather have 20 than Salzburg any day of the week. So he was saying, well, 20 at home, only 2-1 down, that gives him that. The great thing about last night is how one goal changes a whole narrative. Can you imagine waking up this morning and Rangers had been beaten last night? What the narrative is?
Well, funnily enough, Hugh, I take your point on that, but as I was watching the game, and I'm watching how Rangers were playing, and I'm watching Dynamo Kyiv, I was actually saying, this is a good result. 1-0 was a good result, because I didn't think they were any great shakes. So my point, as I was looking at it, and I remember, just as I was about to put a tweet out, I thought, this is a good result for Rangers. And he equalises.
It's a good goal.
This is a great result for Rangers, because the only thing that is the great unknown here is how Rangers are going to adapt to Hampden. That's the big problem, because I don't think it's a great stadium to go to go in and say, right, this is us until October, November. I wonder how they're going to adapt to it, because, you know, I don't think Dynamo Kyiv will go through on the basis of what I watched last night unless Rangers totally capitulate. I just thought it was a great result for them, and I think you're right. Results can kill them, but the flip side of this is it's a massive roll of the financial dice to get into the Champions League, which could in some ways really enhance the manager's position. But secondary to that is you've extended his deal at a time when there's not a lot of money at Rangers to go and buy the players they really would like to buy. So you're not going to be sacking managers, you know, with a 4-year deal. I think John Bennett's of the opinion, let's give him time, let's try and build a team, let's try and get that blueprint in. If we have to take the flak from Rangers fans because, you know, 1 and 2 or 3 trophies slip by, then so be it. I mean, my God, Paddy Power have already paid out.
Yeah.
Celtic fans betting on them winning the league after one game.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I think ultimately having that strategy is fine in theory. I think, but the reality is it will be tested.
Yeah.
It will be
absolutely,
tested.
Yes.
The big, huge game is Saturday against Motherwell at Hampden for so many reasons. Rangers haven't won a game since May.
Yeah, I know.
They've got to win.
Yeah, it's a great line, isn't it? They've got to win. It's game 3 of this.
Yeah, it's a reality. That's what.
Can you imagine if they draw on Saturday?
I think that's what when you talk about strategies and then you talk about reality. I think that's a perfect case in point, because if they do drop any points for a second successive game, you can guarantee that there will be a clamour.
Well, my gut feeling on you can only take a chairman. I try and look and read between the lines, regardless of what obviously Brendan Rodgers says about people suggesting otherwise. Journalist's job is to look, dissect, try and decode some of the nonsense that goes on, that comes out of managers' mouths and lots of board members. I'm looking and thinking to myself, Clement is a decent man. Mm-hmm. He's not got involved in the madness of what goes on in a city with the Celtic and Rangers managers. And I think he should be allowed to build his side. And I think John Bennett will hold his nerve. Admittedly, though, by the end of September, you know, Celtic could be out of sight. If they won the Old Firm game and they keep playing, you know, the way they've had a great pre-season, they've also, you know, played Kilmarnock off the park. I mean, they just swatted Kilmarnock away, and that's without a signing of note. One goalkeeper in.
Well, there's tensions even there, you know, because it's incredible to come off a double winning season and people saying, "Oh, Flag Day, oh, we don't see any of the board." And you say, "What? You just won a double? You've got 70 million in the bag," and that is the big anchor around their neck at the moment.
Yeah,
they've got so much money. And fans are saying, show me the money. Let's get it done. And it's a difficult market they're in. We've discussed it before. And as always in Glasgow, you're never short of stories, never short of controversy. And that's one that'll rumble on for the next 3 weeks.
I think Allison has hit the nail on the head, though. Let's see if the strategy is backed.
Oh, aye.
Gut feeling is on it. He's got to hold his nerve. He's got to look at the man and say, We're backing you. We're giving you the money as much as
fair. The contract would suggest that.
The contract suggests that they've got faith in the strategy. Where they've got faith in the strategy when they get punched in the nose,
yeah,
and
repeatedly.
Was it Mike Tyson also? All your plans disappear when you get hit in the face, punched in the nose. And this thing, like, look at Celtic. Celtic were on the back of 4 trebles, one season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mayhem. And on that point, for switching from Rangers, we obviously started with Raith Rovers, Rangers, switching to Celtic, and a little bit of nostalgia that I think is well worthy of mentioning. It was really a great touch by the club to bring out Jim Craig and his wife to unfurl the flag. And it brought back lots of memories of I think the one enjoyable aspect of my job over a long period of time has been getting to interview legends at clubs. like last year was wonderful because I had the chance to kind of wallow in Aberdeen's 40th anniversary and chat to so many of those great players that I admired. I had the joy of working with Sandy Jardine as my co-commentator for years at Radio 4th when he obviously had the time to do that before he went back to Rangers. You get a chance to interview legends, but to see Jim Craig there, it's great because he was always, no disrespect to the rest of him, he was always what I considered the smart one of the Lisbon Lions. He was really a well-educated man, could have had a career,
Did have a career, he was a dentist for a long time.
But in the early days, he had so much opportunity because of his education to do so many things. But, he was a vital part of that side. He also
doesn't think it's a penalty.
He doesn't think it's a penalty. And, of course, he laid the ball back for Tommy Gemmell. The days when, actually...
Fullbacks could be that far up apart.
Well, I was going to say, for the benefit of people who think, attacking fullbacks was invented a couple of years ago, it wasn't. It was a great touch by the club.
Yeah, I thought it was. I think the Lisbon Lions were given their place, really. I think when Martin O'Neill went into the club, he really made it a point. I think one of his first acts was to take them all out for dinner, and I think in a way they had become sidelined by Celtic in a way. I think a new regime came in and gave them their place. We know what they achieved will never be replicated. I think they are assured of their legendary status forevermore at Celtic, and I think it's right to celebrate that, and it's right now as they're in the twilight of their own years, and there'll be John Clark and Willie Wallace left. I think it's right to get Bobby Lennox. I think you want to give them
John Fallon, who obviously was part of the squad as well.
You want to give them their
I
place.
think there's a real poignancy about it, particularly if you're my age. I think for people of any age, but I felt a personal poignancy because I remember them so vividly as vibrant, virile, heroes. I mean, like
big personalities.
Big personalities, even if the size of John Clark, Bobby Lennox, big people.
As you'd need to be. You think as you would have had to be.
You saw it in Jim. Obviously, like the rest of us is getting frailer and walking out to a party. You go, goodness gracious, it's like one of these great memento mori kind of things where you're saying, goodness gracious, it is going on. When they sing in the heat of Lisbon now, they are talking about 1967. It's a long time ago.
Well, I know it sounds really outrageous to suggest this, and I'm willing for the two of you to kick me right out into left field, as you
always do.
As you often do on this programme. I mean, I thought it was great in the summer when lots of Rangers fans of a certain vintage turned up to see the unveiling of the Walter Smith statue. But if it was me, and I know we're statue daft at times, but if it... Well, I was up I have to say to you, I don't know what it was, but I was up at Paradise and I filmed the Jim McLean statue because I thought, for all his faults, he gave them a title and he gave them so many great games in Europe. The players and you can criticise his management technique, but he definitely had something, Jim. But if it was me, I would commission 11 players, all in bronze or in some new form outside Celtic Park or down that walkway, where all 11 of them are immortalised. People love getting the photographs taken next to statues, but I think all 11 deserve to be in that lineup that's famous, that people now buy as wallpaper for their kids' rooms. It should be something like that would be absolutely fantastic, because I looked at Jim Craig and I thought, wow, Jim Craig, John Clark, Willie Wallace and Bobby Lennox of the starting 11 are the only ones still with us. So
and they're all getting to an age where
they know themselves. It's the twilight of your career. You can't hide from the fact you're going to die at some point.
I don't think there'd be any Celtic fan in the world would disagree with that.
That lineup, that team lineup.
Even just like
even the walkout,
the statues walking up like a Roman, walking in a Roman amphitheatre when you're walking through statues, especially when you've already got the Billy McNeil want to kick it off at the start of that walkway.
Yes.
That's be a good place to kick
And
it off.
Jimmy Johnson at the other.
It's good Jimmy Johnson to end with.
Yeah.
And Billy obviously...
Buying into it?
I'm buying into it,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think fans
Go fund me.
I think fans would love it. I think also it celebrates an iconic moment. It's a moment that will forever be the iconic moment of Celtic. In fact, it really set the bar for everything else that followed, because every manager that walks through the door at Celtic walks into this very visible reminder of this is where this club was once.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, I thought we'd get a wee bit of nostalgia there, because
And it's starting the season with me and Alison agreeing with you, Peter.
no, it's not a good sign.
Slightly dirty.
I'm actually going to...
Give it time, we've got half an hour left.
I'm actually going to bring in more journalists who can maybe sit on my side to defend you two off. But it's always good talking about things near and far. We've got discussions on the Journos where we'll discuss European football as well as it unfolds. And of course, we like to come up with top 10s, top 5s, the lot. And the last part that I'm obviously going to finish the programme on, I just thought was magnificent, because I think one of our journalists, Blair, had brought to my attention the fact that Sivert Nielsen is an older player who's come in at Aberdeen, and he played a pass. He played a pass that, under normal circumstances, for people who have watched good football and great players, that's a great pass. But for people who've been witnessing the mediocrity of last season, they'll be thinking, my God, this boy's a genius. Because I thought the standard of football last season in the Premiership was really poor.
Aye.
So Sivert Nielsen's one pass is one thing. If he goes on and, passes on his experience and shows that little bit of class, it brought to my mind great players or good players or experienced players who've joined the side and suddenly lit it up in the twilight of their careers. They may well have been great players elsewhere, but suddenly they've come into a team, and automatically as a fan you think, wow, it's like when I was a young reporter at Radio 4, one of the board members, Sandy Jardine, told me one of the board members come up to him and said, this is Sandy Jardine, 37 years of age, who won the Players' Player of the Year at 37 in Scotland, playing for Hearts as a sweeper. And he said, I didn't actually know how good you were. And I thought to myself, that's an older director saying that. I'm thinking, where have you been? Do you not see there are two teams on a park? And Sandy Jardine at Hearts kicks it off nicely for me, because, he goes in, he undoubtedly passes on a wealth of experience to the likes of a Craig Levein, a young Craig Levein. And then you've got Davy Cooper who goes in Motherwell, who, you ask any Motherwell fan, my God, they salivate about him. And why not? He was a genius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's quite a few examples actually that come to mind. Ľubomír Moravčík at Celtic, I think, going in the latter stages of career, much derision, no one knowing where he'd come from. I think he's a fabulous player, really, some special moments for Celtic. I always remember him actually when Celtic got in the Champions League, like celebrating when they put Ajax out. He arms aloft, and after it seemed like it'd been the holy grail of his career was to get into the Champions League. So sometimes clubs can still offer players of that ilk, they can still offer them something too. Ray Wilkins would be another one. Ray Wilkins, when he went up to Rangers in the latter stages of his career. Frank Sosie at Hibs. I think fans of those clubs love it. I think you still see the quality, you still see what they've got, maybe at a point in time where you wouldn't have been able to afford them or attract them at that level, but they still retain that semblance of quality. And
when I put the point out on Twitter, or X, as it's now known, Hugh, I always like to sometimes put positive ones out and see if you can get any positivity left on that side. But one of them was exactly. One of the points was raised by a Raith Rovers fan who said Dave Neary. I mean, Dave Neary at Raith Rovers, they won the League Cup. He was in that League Cup winning side. I know.
People just... I think I always remember, people forget how good that generation of players at Dundee United and Aberdeen were. I always go back to this when Aberdeen were chasing a Ronnie Dyla team. They had Ash Taylor at centre half and somebody texted me and said, "Do you think Aberdeen would have won the title if they had McLeish and Miller? McLeish and Miller themselves?" I said, "They would win the title if McLeish and Miller were playing with them now in the 63. I mean, that's a good. McLeish and Miller were like the best centre-back pairing in Europe. Hegarty and Neary were viable contenders for that. They were in the argument as well. People forget how good they were. I've got a couple for you. My one would be, in so many ways, in my generation again, if you talk about the greatest high B ever, people will be talking about the famous five: Gordon Smith, Ormond, Laurie Riley, Turnbull, Bobby Johnson, right? So fair enough. They're just before my time, believe it or not. The greatest high B to me for somebody was Pat Stanton.
Yes. And
Pat Stanton not only left Hibs to come to Celtic, but left from being a midfield player at Hibs to being a sweeper or certainly a secondary centre-half at Celtic. And he was absolutely terrific. And in that same role, Dave Mackay, who was one of the greatest Tottenham Hotspur players ever, went to Derby County under Clough, and he was completely integral in Derby County's success, under Clough. And he went back from being a midfield player to playing in the middle of the defensive area. They were the two that would stick out for me.
George Best at Hibs?
Well, the funny thing is, somebody mentioned George Best, and I thought to myself, well, George Best, for the fleeting appearances that he did make, he scored a brilliant goal for Hibs against Celtic at Easter Road, but there were so few and far between, and at that point it was almost little glimpses of the genius and the light that was fading. But if you get someone who comes in who is, let's just say the benchmark is 31, 32 onwards, who comes into a club and suddenly for a full season or 2 seasons or 3 just gives you a sense of what you haven't had before.
Changes the club, maybe. Changes. Look at Davy Weir at Rangers. Changes. Walter would tell you all the time, or Smith would tell you all the time how important Weir was to him, not just as a centre-half, but laying down standards, laying down the way you had to play, when the winning was everything. I always remember I had to go and interview Davy Weir, me being my neurotic self, went up to Murray Park to interview him, and I was miles early. And I just walked past the gym, and there was he alone in this gym. He must have been 38, 39 at the time, doing stretches. And when I interviewed him, he says, I've been stretching for an hour and a half. Just doing stretches.
Yeah.
He says, that's just all got to do it, man, is to continue playing. So you can imagine what younger players are saying if he's in doing that after a full session. So older players can contribute in so many ways.
Yeah, and it would be remiss of me not on that double whammy for Motherwell. When we mentioned Davy Cooper, Bobby Russell was another player who came in, if anything, of a certain generation. As you go through the generations, Hearts fan says to me, Pasquale Bruno. Do you remember Pasquale?
I do indeed.
So, he would come in, and a St Johnstone fan mentioned Sergei Baltacha.
Oh.
Kenija at Dundee.
Kenija. Yeah. Honestly, can you imagine just going in?
And you say, well, Ravanelli was here too.
Yeah. That's right.
Have you been eating mushrooms this morning?
No. So many of them who appear without getting paid.
Always remember, I was at Dundee, you always go, the old days used to send you down to Champions League games and say, Manchester United, I just go down there and get Alec, see if you get 2 questions with Alec, and we go and see what you can get in the press room. I always remember I was going up to my buffet and putting a bit of pasta on my plate and all that, and roast it in my shirt, obviously. And a silver-haired person was just eating this beautiful buffet, and I whispered in his ear, "It's a bit different from Dens Park." I said, "Looked at Fabrizio Ravanelli for Sky Italia." What world did that happen?
Yeah, those players, strangely enough though, those players in those periods where they were able to just, give a little swan song and a little insight into what they were like when they were better at their peak. We talk about Cooper at Motherwell. You've mentioned Kenija, who plays in a World Cup final. My God, he's up there at Dens. And
I always remember one day we had gone a drive up to the outlet, at Stirling, they had a big night place, and then looking for stuff and turn around and Kinija was like pushing through the sale rack. All these shirts and thinking like that, just thinking, what's going on?
A sale's a sale. Whether you're in Argentina or whether you're in Scotland. As soon as a shout.
Aye.
Definitely, isn't it?
Yeah.
I went to see Souness with my pal Big Joe's a season ticket holder and went and saw when he came up, and I got his missus' tickets. So I was in the Colton Road end watching just to see Souness and others. I remember they hit this ball for about 40 yards and it went over McCoy's head, and McCoy didn't run for it because he thought, this is going out. Well, of course, it's Souness. So the ball takes a stow, it spins, and Ali could have got it, but it rolls out of play, because Ali just think, can he have that much control of the ball? And there was this shout, this guy still, Souness, you'll just no day. You're free to problem at all,
It's those players. Here's one that I mention it only for the people of a certain generation in Paisley, Victor. Who played for St Mirren, and he actually had a career and a sparkling career at Barcelona.
Oh, absolutely. But the other one I always think when you bring these up as well is Zoltán Varga.
Oh, Aberdeen.
And for people, they'll be glazed eyes about Zoltán Varga. And Zoltán Varga came to Aberdeen because he was involved in a betting scandal. He's a Hungarian. And
he lost the bet.
And he had to get. And watching him was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, what a player he was.
Steve Archibald.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. When he came back, Steve Archibald, when he came back to Hibs. Just quality.
You forget that Archie goals. Imagine it now. I always think that when they see the changing face of Scottish football, like in 2000s, early 2000s, you could have a centre forward who's won the Premier League in England. One of the great partnerships of all time. Can have one bad season.
At one point, the most expensive
player
transfer in British football.
One bad season, and he can end up at Celtic.
Yeah, and with that in mind,
how much the landscape has changed in that 2 decades.
Larson at Man United.
Larson anybody, Larson at Barcelona, Larson at Helsingborg. I mean, Larson done it.
Yeah. Listen, it's a trip down memory lane. It's undoubtedly a list that you can add to. If we've forgotten anyone at your club, my apologies, because there are certainly players in the twilight of their career that evoke great memories for a certain vintage of fan. Who knows, maybe Sivert Nielsen will light up the midfield for Aberdeen if he can pull off the pass he pulled off in their game against St Johnstone more frequently. They'll love it.
He's another one, Simon Stainrod at Falkirk.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Stainrod was a unique type of player, very shy man. I remember him talking about, I think this is Stainrod's one of those guys, undoubted quality, but the mere suggestion that he was into kind of martial arts and he was, showing people his body, that kind of didn't sit well with Yogi, who ended up going into the shower and picking a fight with him, just to show them who was boss. Absolutely, no respect for the fact you've been a really good player. Hold on to this.
Simon Stainrod still have his fedora on.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, it takes a special player to be able to wear a fedora, but there are some great names in there. I'm sure you can add to them along the way. These were players who were great at one particular club, but then suddenly, for one fleeting moment, just decided for a year or two in the twilight of their careers to produce a wee moment of magic at another club. And boy, have I enjoyed rolling through those names. Ray Wilkins, almost certainly, Cooper, Soze, Kinija, Moravčík, Larson, Pat Stanton, Pasquale Bruno, Dave Neary. You could maybe add to that as well in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the Journos. We will bring you on more special guests as the season progresses as well. But always, as ever, with Alison McConnell, Hugh McDonald and myself, Peter Martin, hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. and you can come and join the football family. We're really absolutely delighted at the support you gave us last season, and hopefully with the unique video content we have, we will provide more for you to enjoy, not only with the Journos, straight talk with my one-to-one interviews. We've got the football show, we've got the women's football show as well, and there are more programmes that I think you're going to enjoy coming on board this season. So, thank you for listening, thank you for watching. From Alison, Hugh and myself, Peter, until the next time.